awesome friends, Goddess of Awesome here, and I have another little tidbit for you today. Today's February 4th, I believe, 2020, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about your people, your people. So obviously I'm like just being out here, vulnerable, talking to you about topics that most people don't talk about. I think people are thirsty for this knowledge, but most people don't talk about it, right? We keep this under a rock. We don't give it its due attention. And because we don't give it its due attention, it gets more attention than it should get. You know what I mean? I think when you put something in a cookie jar and you put it up high out of the way and you say, don't you touch that cookie. No, you see that cookie jar? It's got some fresh baked good stuff and you can't have one. Like, that's the best way to make somebody find a ladder or pull out every drawer in the cupboard to climb up into the counter to get that cookie jar, It's better to use real words and give your people, your children, as it's age appropriate for them, real information, and I believe the sex talk should start around 8. Many kids have been sexually abused before that, so for the ones who haven't been sexually abused before that, it's a good time to talk about it. For those who have been sexually abused before the age of 8, if you speak to them around 7 or 8, it will be significant. Significant to offer them some kind of pathway, a road. You'll pave a road with these words of allowing them to know it's safe to talk to you about anything in the world. And even if you should tell them, even if you think I'm going to be mad, it's okay to tell me things because I'm here to help you. I'm your lesson giver and I love you more than anything. And the only thing I want is your happiness. Feel free to tell me anything because I'm always going to be in your corner. I'm always going to be on your side. That's what every little kid needs to hear, and they may not listen. They may not give you an impression that they understand what you just said or that they took it all in. But let me tell you, their little minds are listening. And later, when it becomes relevant, something happens in life. They meet a friend, they go to their house, something happens on the schoolyard, they find something online, whatever. Having already paved that path of you can tell me anything no matter what, I'm here for you, I'm always on your side. Even if you think I'm going to be mad, I'm always going to be on your side. Like, that's the biggest beautiful gift you could give any young person, That's what I tell my little sister who's 10 years younger than me. I was 21 and came home from Northern California and she was 10 and that's exactly what I told her. I said, your body's going to start changing soon. You may not understand all of it. If you have any questions, you can always ask me, If, I know don't know what this word is, I told her at 10. But if in the future you ever need condoms, you can always come to me and ask me and tell me. She was 10. She didn't need, she probably never even knew what a condom was, and maybe she didn't know for another 3 or 4 years, or maybe it was just 2 years. Who knows? Kids are smart these days. We need to give them more credit than we do. We think children can't feel sexual energy. You're right. They absolutely do. Do they act out on it all the time? Sometimes. Most of the time, no, but sometimes they can, who didn't masturbate as a child? I did, I felt so full of sin every time I was done with it. Oh God, please forgive me, I touched myself today. It's okay to touch yourself, Now going around touching everybody else who doesn't want to be touched, it's a whole different ball of wax. But being able to touch yourself, not a problem, So I think if any of you are out there watching my channel, and you have reservations of like, oh my God, like this is interesting information, but how do I protect my young one from going into this world, That's probably a real concern for a lot of people. The best way, I think, is to make the information available. Like I said to you before about letting them know you got to pave that path for them to be able to tell you anything. And once they really know they can tell you anything, there's no topic off the table, you've got a great chance of helping them go down a path that will not lead them into the sex industry. So I'd like to say, like, I think most people are fascinated about the sex industry, right? Who hasn't watched Pretty Woman and a little bit thought to themselves, girl or boy, dang, huh, you know what I mean? Like, there's everybody has thought about it at least once, you know? So it's within our nature to consider those thoughts. We don't need to act out on them. Some of us do. You know, some of us find their way into this industry. For me, it took a lot of thought. I had to think and think and think and think and think and think and think. And when push came to shove financially, I was on the diving board with my toes hanging off, and I went in. And I went in as an exotic dancer. See, I think that's the gateway. That's the gateway drug for everything else in the industry. Now, maybe for some, they just go straight to being a full service person, or they go straight into body work. I don't know anybody I've never come across anybody who just got plucked out of the world and went straight into being a hand job person. You know, you kind of find your way there. You know, become a stripper. That gets boring after a while. You take it somewhere else, if that's where your path leads you, you know, or that's the path you're on. So getting back to my topic, how do you assure that your precious isn't going to end up in this world? Well, there's no real promises, right? You can't ever make a strong conclusion that it's never going to happen. But we could hope it doesn't ever happen for your sake, right? For those who don't want to see their daughters going this direction. I think, you know, one question might be, if my child is around people who are like this, are they going to be like that? You know? And I don't know. That's an individual answer. That's an answer for every individual to come across. You know, like, I have sisters. Neither of them are sex workers. I have young cousins. One just turned 22 or so. I think 22, maybe 23. I think she's 22. She's not a sex worker. You know, never even had the idea. In fact, I told her years ago, please don't go down this path. I've tried to protect her. I would never talk about it in front of her. Her mother just celebrated me so much. We had such a great connection. And her mom was my aunt was very, she just passed away last year, sadly. But you know, my auntie is very forward with her words. You couldn't put a filter on that woman. She just, if she felt it, she said it, you know, and she raised her kids like that. And they've heard a lot of things, you know, so, you know, sometimes my aunt would even talk about my world a little bit around them, and I would like try to, hey, you don't need to talk about that right here, you know. At the same time, if they know, that's not a bad thing either, in the sense of it doesn't change who I am. I'm part of their family. It doesn't change, you know, my love for them. And would I want to groom any of them down this path? No, there surely wouldn't. You know, even though it comes with freedom, love for time, a lot of time freedom of time, freedom of having a boss, you know. And at times can feel very financially like freedom, you know. I would say this industry is like a feast or famine kind of situation for most. You know, there might be some who've harnessed this modern day with the social media, and they're up on they keep it updated and fresh, and that probably, you know, they probably may not experience feast and famine moments, but most of us do. I would say there's definitely a flow in life where through the year where more people are into this, and then it ebbs a little bit, and then the flow comes back, and then it ebbs a little bit. So you gotta be wise if you're going to be in this world. Try to stack your chips if possible, or pay your rent a month or two in advance. I used to always do that. When I got riding my horses, it kind of, you know, money was going there, and you just keep up with it as best as you can. But getting back to the topic, and then I'll end this. As long as you're forward in a positive way with your information, that you're not holding anything back, you know, you're not going to verbalize certain terms and talk a certain way with certain age groups. But you have to also bear in mind, they are hearing these words on the playground, okay? They are hearing these words in the movie theater that you take them to. You know, they're hearing these things on the television, they're hearing and seeing it online, and they're definitely getting it in person on the playground. So it is such a disservice to not equip your children with proper terminology. Like my sister has kids. Her kids have known all the anatomical terms since they were so little. You know, my grandma, when it comes to the female part, we would be in the bathtub. She'd hand us a washcloth. Here, and wash your oh, did you dry your that's what our word was at home. Your you know, you call it that, or what's another word for, you know, pussy? Obviously everybody calls it that. You know, lots of people don't like that word. So lots of girls don't like that word. But it's not a bad word. It's actually a very powerful word. But I remember being in the stage of the game where it made you feel blush, you know, like almost embarrassed to hear it, even though you're fully clothed, you know. Hoo-ha, there's another one. It's better to be real with it, you know. It's better to give the anatomical words, be straight up about their body changing, and let them know, you know, you can talk to me about anything. That's probably your best way to avoid them coming down this path, you know. So my sister, 10 years younger, you know, I told her, you just heard what I said, you know, when she was 10, I told her your body's going to be changing and all that. So, you know, my sister, the young one, she held on to her virginity till she was 19. That's a long time for the modern day. I thought that was amazing. And guess who the first person who got to hear about it was? Me, because I had created a space where she could feel safe to talk about all sorts of things in the world, including that, you know. So did my baby sister of 10 years get groomed down this path that I'm in? No. She took a completely different path. I never tried to influence her. I never even told her till she was about 21. I had had an arrest that was like blasted all over the nation, and well, I knew her dad was going to tell her. It was the whole family knew. How could you not know? Like, probably made every newscasting, the 12 noon, the 3 o'clock, the 5 o'clock, the 6 o'clock. I'm sure it was on all of them for that whole day, you know. So I told her then at 21 what I do, you know. I never wanted to influence her. I never wanted her to think it was easy money or that it was an easy thing to do. And she was on her collegiate path, and she, you know, she was renting a room, and she was living within her means, and she was doing her school. There's no reason for me to share anything of what I was up to. Didn't need to derail her, you know. And that's been my intention for every young person in my life, you know. And none of them are sex workers. I'm like the only one. So if you don't want your daughter going down that path, or your niece or your cousin or someone you love, just invite them to be able to feel safe with you, and that they can tell you anything, because that's going to be your number one ally. Whatever, you know, that your ally in helping them not go down that path is going to be you. Telling them communication is always available here, no matter what it is, you know. The next part to this, and then I'll end this video, I think girls who end up in this industry, we've been predisposed to it, right? Women and boys and girls, and everyone in between, we have, many of us have been sexually abused children. We've been groomed as young minds, young people to understand or to have experience with sexual energy. And those of us who have had that in our lives as children, I think it's easier for us to jump in that pond. You know, we've been exposed to it already. We understand. People try to take it. You know, we get that, and we understand, you know, when I got in, it was like revenge, you know. It was like, ha, you can't touch me. You can't touch me. No, you can't. You can see. I'm only getting to get so close. You can't touch me. It was like revenge. It was like, ha, finally. You can't touch me, but look, don't you want to? Ha, you can't. And that I needed that. There was part of that taking my power back. Sounds crazy, but I started to take my power back after I was an exotic dancer for about a year. Now that first year was definitely, I felt all of that, but I also had my grandma in the back of my head telling me all sorts of things. It made you feel like a bad person, you know? So I feel like I had my My first nervous breakdown at 19 after being in the industry for a whole year. And then at 19, it was like, oh, my brain just couldn't stay wound tight like that anymore. Everything was unraveling, and that was good. It was great to let it all unravel. A lot of those beliefs and words were planted in me as a belief system. Some of them were great. Some of them were a little detrimental. You know, she didn't need to tell me a few things like sex is just for the man. Well, that's messed up. Now I'm 6 years old learning sex is just for the man. I don't even know what really like sex is at that point. I mean, I kind of did because my abuse started happening when I was 4, you know, but when you think about men and I was taught it was a game at first, right? You're a little kid and this is where it went. But yeah, sex is just for the man. That's some evil, well, that's a bad word. Not a bad word. It's an inappropriate word. That's some wrongdoing. That was a disservice. It was a disservice to me and anyone else my grandma raised who she told that to. But that was also part of her generation, you know? So does every sexually abused child end up in the adult industry? Probably not, right? And it's probably safe to say probably not, you know? There's probably some who have been abused as children, never made it in this industry. Do many of us who are sexually abused as children end up in this industry? You bet your bottom dollar. Absolutely. Absolutely. Take it one more step. I have a dear friend who was a sex worker for a long time as a stripper. She was only ever a stripper. She never did hand jobs. She was never a full service girl. You know, she was a dancer, classically trained, so it was easy for her to take her dance moves and get into the adult world. Now, this particular friend, she was in a strip club on her 18th birthday. The actual day of her 18th birthday, she marched in the club the second she was able to, slapped down her ID. I'm 18. I want to work here, you know? And I'm sure they were thrilled to have her. Barely legal, you know? It's exciting for some people. So she's never been sexually abused as a child. So she doesn't fit. She doesn't fit in that little groove I just told you about. However, she was detrimentally emotionally abused and physically beat as a kid. Not from her parents, from her older brother. Oh, I keep space that brothers are great, you know? But my older brother was an asshole to me a lot of growing up. He was very mean, and he's the one who actually sexually abused me from 4 years old to 14. As I got to be about 12, it really got infrequent, you know? But it didn't stop till I was 14. That was the last time. Different, but very similar with my good friend. Her brother knocked the snot out of her every single day when she came home from school. Her parents were gone. They're at work, whatever they were doing. Her brother, 4 years older than her, knocked the snot out of her. It was fun for him to beat up his little twig of a sister. When I first met her, she was 19. I think I was 25. You could blow her away in the wind. She was like lanky and thin and very thin, you know. She's probably a size 0, you know, just a little petite thing, you know. And here she is with this big mean brother who enjoys beating her up for fun when mom and dad aren't around. And maybe he even had some of his friends watch or be there when he was doing it. Maybe some of the friends even kind of joined in. I don't know how much, but certainly with verbal, I'm sure, you know. And she never felt safe ever growing up. And she told her parents, and they didn't believe her. They thought it was sibling rivalry. Now, there's a difference of sibling rivalry and sibling abuse. And this 4 years older than her. That's like when he's 12, she's 8, you know? He's got all this strength. She's a little kid. And she was never protected. She was never saved from that because her parents just couldn't see. They just couldn't see how their adoring son could be like that to their beautiful daughter. Well, they weren't there half the time seeing it, most of the time. And when she told them about it, they still have a hard time wrapping their mind around that. But she, to this day, is still sorting it through. You know, she has a good relationship with him now, slightly. You know, or they're grown up, everyone lives in their own houses. It's easier to be friends when you're grown-ups, I think. But when you're forced to live under the same roof with somebody who makes you not feel safe, that's really messed up. And so similar to me, I never felt safe growing up, right? My brother was a predatory when I was sleeping. So I learned how to be very hard, deep sleeper, you know? I'd wake up swinging sometimes. I had a paper out as a kid. I'd knock my mom a few times, wake up to her crying. But that's because that was that's how I slept. You know what I mean? I'm ready to, if I'm going to wake up during it, I'm going to rip you to shreds as best possible. And the flip side to that is just try to put myself so freaking deep in my sleep that I just don't know what the hell's going on, you know? So, is your daughter or someone that you love, young person, at risk for finding their way down the path into the sex industry? You know, is she being raised in an environment where she doesn't feel safe? It's the first thing to look at. Is she being abused in some way or another? It doesn't have to be sexual. It can just be mental and emotional and physical. That's enough, you know, to tip the scale. And I don't know what happens inside of us. I don't know where our brains go. I don't know why, as damaged as we are, we end up in the sex industry. You would think that it'd be the worst place for us to be, you know, like just keep the cycle going, you know. But I think a lot, and similar to, like I said to you before, when I got in as a stripper, it was like revenge, you know. Part of it was necessity. I needed the finances to support me. I had been, you know, I was going to school full time, working 3 jobs. I only ever had 1 Sunday off a month, you know. I worked as a tutor in between my classes at college. I tutored people with learning differences in between my classes. I never got a lunch break. I changed my clothes as I was driving in the car after school to work. I mean, I didn't have time to, my schedule was so tight. I did not even have time to go to the restroom and put my work clothes on. I literally was driving and changing my clothes as I went to my telemarketing job, which sucked ass, 6 days a week. And then I worked fast food on Sundays at a family restaurant that I was part of their family, you know. And if I had missed 1 day of work, I wasn't going to make my bills. That's how tight it was. Well, I got sick. I got the flu and I was down. I was down for like 2 weeks. 10 days to 2 weeks. It was awful. And there's no one to ask for help. So, you know, I thought about it. You know, $80 an hour. $80 an hour. I'm making like minimum wage here, which back then was like, I don't know, $5-6. Not much. I lived on a lot of bread and pasta. I remember one time thinking to myself, my mom used to cook zucchini and vegetables. I never ate vegetables. I couldn't afford them, you know. I made $20 last a whole month for food. We're talking a lot of bread. So, long story short, and I'm sorry I went off on that, but there's ways to groom young people down this path, and I think there's ways to groom them elsewhere. Now the trick is you don't need to tell them what you're doing, you know, and you don't need to force them elsewhere. You just need to make it available for them to talk to you about anything, and then keep helping them down whatever path it is that they love, and then let them go to school and let them do their thing, and obviously be supportive of them in every which way. But, you know, like my youngest sister, you know, I can't say she grew up without any emotional stress or mental stress. She had the same brother I did. I don't think he did anything to her like that. I think I'm the only one who got that. The sexual abuse, right? I'm the next one in line. He's first, I'm second. Then I have another one and another one, 2 sisters younger than me. I don't think either of them ever were sexually abused. But they lived in fear. He was a scary guy sometimes growing up, you know? And that feeling unsafe, that's probably what you got to look out for. You got to make sure your children are safe growing up? And not that they are just safe in your home and you know they're safe. No, do they feel safe? Do they feel safe at night? Do they feel safe when they're left alone with their siblings? Do they feel safe with their cousins or their aunts and uncles? Do they feel safe? You know, that's, I think as long as you let them and assert yourself out there that you got their back, you let them know that no matter what, you're on their side, that makes a person feel safe, right? You can tell me anything. I'm going to love you anyways. You know, you can lay it on me. Even if you think I'm going to get mad, I'm always on your side. I'm always in your corner. You can tell me anything. Just know that. You just know that. And when you tell them that, just leave it there. You don't need to go digging, you know, and try to get stuff out of them. That little invitation goes deep. And when, as life happens, when things happen, you'll be one of the first to know, if not the first to know, because you pave the path for them to feel safe enough to be able to tell you about it. See, my abuse probably could have stopped way earlier in life, right? I mean, at 7 years old, I almost told my grandma. She was washing dishes and I came up from behind her, so I seen her back, you know, and I was like, I was ready to tell her. It was on the tip of my tongue. It took all my gut, everything I had to, I was like, oh, I'm gonna tell my grandma what happens at night, you know? And I got the word out, Grandma? And she said, yes. But she never turned around. She was just kept washing her dishes. And I think I was waiting for her to turn around and look at me in the eyes. And had she done that, I would have probably then spilled my beans, you know, but she never turned around. Yes, she said. She just kept washing dishes. So with her back still to me, I was like, never mind, you know. If I would have felt it was safe to talk to her, maybe I would have, and it would have stopped sooner, you know. You know, you don't assume your people know it's okay to talk to you. You have to tell them. You have to dial direct and tell them it's safe to talk to you about anything in the world, no matter what it may be, no matter if it makes you feel funny or icky or uncertain or embarrassed or bashful or shy or any of the above. Even if you think it's gonna make me so mad my blood is gonna boil, you can tell me anything because I love you no matter what and I'm always on your side. So there you go. There's some words to arm you, you know, with some tools that if you have any worry in you that maybe, you know, your precious, loved, a little, whoever, whatever, female or boy, boys come into the industry too, you know what I mean? So it's just better to tell all young people around 7, 8, somewhere in there, you can talk to me about anything, even if you think it's going to make me mad, and I'm always on your side. So that's the best thing to do, I think. So there you go, if you had any worries about that. So I'm the Goddess of Awesome. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.